Again, this is going to be somewhat generalized. Things are going to change depending on the size of your hand, the strength of your hand, the shape of your hand, the size of the gun, the weight of the gun, etc. But by and large, this is what we're looking for in a grip. So for right-handed shooters, my right hand's on the gun, just like so. I've got my right hand high and tight on the back of this gun, as high and tight as I can get it. And then what's left, on the opposite side of the gun, we have this finger off the trigger. Fingers wrapped all the way around, like so. What we're going to do for our offhand, what I like to suggest is thumbs up, get that thumb out of the way. Then this whole empty space here is where the rest of our hand's going to go. And we bring the thumb down, and it's going to look just like that. So, one more time. Thumb up, hands meet right here. We wrap our hands around together, bring the thumb back down, fingers wrapped around together just like that. And again, this isn't a 100% how it should look for everyone for every gun. You may find that you want your hand a little bit lower, maybe you want your left hand a little bit higher, whatever. Generally speaking, this is what you want it to look like. Just like that. So now onto lefties. So for our left-handed shooters, again, same thing. Left hand's going high and tight on the gun, high as you can get it. We have our fingers wrapped around the other side of the gun, just like this, finger high off the trigger. So our whole left hand wrapped around the gun just like that. Same thing, just like the righties. I suggest popping the thumb up, do the thumbs up, put our whole palm in this area here, and thumbs wrapped around just like that. So again, palm in this area here, meet right here on your fingers or the trigger guard, roll it in, left hand thumb down. It's going to look like this. Again, generalized approach. This is not 100% how it will look for you. Your left hand might be a little bit higher, might be a little bit lower. If you can't keep your thumb on the frame, especially common for smaller guns, then just let the thumb fly off. Same thing for the righties. If you can't keep the thumb on there, just let it fly off and keep it off there. Don't keep doing this in between every shot. Just let it stay off there and squeeze on tight with what you can grab onto. We're going to talk about trigger control. Largely, what you want to do is you want to get to the wall of the trigger. What does that mean? Well, the way most triggers are going to work on most guns is something like this. First we have this pre-travel. It's this relatively weightless length of travel we have to go before we get to the hard spot on the trigger. The heavy spot, we'll call it. It's called the wall. So what we want to do is get up to the wall first. Get rid of the pre-travel, get rid of the weightless part, get to the wall first. Then once we're at the wall, that's when we pull the trigger and break the shot. Now, you're not necessarily going to miss from doing this, finger all the way forward, all the way back. Depending on the size of the target, how close you are to the target, smacking the trigger isn't necessarily going to be the reason that you miss. But if we can get rid of some of that movement in the first place by going from here to get rid of the pre-travel to all the way to the wall, so we get there first before each shot, well, it helps minimize that movement. So while it may not be even 100% fixed to all of your problems, trigger control related, it will get rid of some of that excess movement. So if we can get rid of some of that excess movement when pulling the trigger back, why not do that in the first place? So ideally, again, get rid of the pre-travel, get to the wall, the heavy spot, get there first, confirm the sights to where they want to be, pull the trigger. That's it. That's all you got to do. One more thing when talking about triggers. Sometimes you'll hear people say, pull the trigger straight to the rear. And you may also hear, depending on where your index finger is on the trigger, that's to say, if you place this part of your index finger on the trigger right in the center pad, that's where you want it. And if you have too little trigger finger, the shots will go this way. If you have too much trigger finger on the shots will go one way. That is not true. Let's demonstrate here. So I've got my finger on the ideal quote spot here right now. Got it on the pad of my finger. I'm going to pull it back. And would you look at that? The trigger went straight to the rear. Okay, and let me try doing it now with as little finger as possible on the trigger as I can get. Huh. Trigger still went straight to the rear. Let me try putting as much finger in there as I can. I'm going to shift my grip around a little bit here. So let me try doing this. Oddly enough, the trigger still went straight to the rear no matter where my finger was. It doesn't matter how your finger is placed on the trigger. That's not going to determine how left or right a shot is. Triggers go straight to the rear, mechanically speaking. They only go one direction, straight to the rear. So what I typically recommend is put your finger wherever it's most comfortable on the trigger, wherever it feels the most comfy. On the topic of focusing on your front sight versus focusing on the target or the rear sight, etc. Right now I have the camera focused on the front sight. My target's blurry. It's a common thing to be taught to focus on the front sight to make your hits, but I assure you, if someone is a threat to you that you felt the need to draw a gun on, you're going to want to be and you will be focused on them. And I promise that as blurry as this camera is making it look, that's where you want your focus to be. Infinitely easier to see if they drop that knife, that gun, if they just had a cell phone in their hand, when your focus is on that, not when your focus is just a few inches in front of your face, focus on that front sight. Yes, somewhat exaggerated with the camera, but it gets the point across. Whether you're using iron sights or red dot, absolutely target focus the whole time. But what's the point of the timer? Well, I get that accuracy is pretty darn important. Dare I say it's the most important thing when we're talking about, say, self-defense encounters. But speed is a pretty close second. If the goal here is to say, okay, I bought my so-and-so a gun, they're going to take a class, they're going to practice, I bought a gun, I'm going to practice, and let's see how good I do at 7 yards, because everyone knows every self-defense encounter is 7 yards and in, yeah, all that nonsense. So they'll do it from the ready too. I'll do it from like a compressed ready state. I'll hit the timer. No bonus points for really tight grouping, nothing. Let's see what happens. Oh, cell phones. Nope, my cell phone didn't go off. Oh, cool. Right, let's relax a sec. Alright, let's try it again. Alright, 3 more shots. Okay. Let's see what the timer says. Timer says 49.41 seconds. 49.41. Cool. So then here's what happens. The boyfriend, uncle, dad, whoever, they're at the range and they say, well, good job, because, well, you know what? They might not have all been together. Here, I'll just walk the camera up. Let's see. They might not have all been in a perfect 1-inch square, but you would have got them. If they were standing there, you would have got them. Yeah, you would have got them if they were standing there. If they were standing there for 49.41 seconds and didn't move, then yes, you would have got them. Congratulations. That's not really how it works, though. You might not have 49.41 seconds to put 5 shots in that tight little grouping. And again, doesn't matter how tight the grouping is. Context here is it inside the 8-inch circle? Cool. Then you won. Let's do the same thing as the first time. We'll start with the gun kind of compressed ready. I'll just have one hand on the gun, nothing fancy. And we'll see how long it takes on the timer to get 5 shots from 7 yards already at the ready into that 8-inch circle. And let's talk about some differences. Here we go. 2.33, so pretty slow. Oh well. 2.33, one went just a little high left, and I saw it before it happened. So let's take a peek now at this grouping again. So actually, this is a perfect example. Is my grouping is tight this time? Nope, it's not. Are they all inside the 8-inch circle? Actually, no, one of them isn't. But between taking 49 seconds and saying, good job, if they were standing there, you would have hit them, and between taking 5 shots and getting 4 in there in 2.33 seconds and 1 just outside, which of those do you think is a more important skill? Which of those is maybe a little more important than the other? So, talking about one-handed shooting, what I typically recommend is start with a two-handed grip and simply take your left hand if you're a righty or your right hand if you're a lefty off, and keep everything else the same. Yes, you can change your thumb positions around a little bit if you want to. You can have your thumb a little bit higher. You can have it lower. You can bring your thumb down here. It doesn't really matter that much. I suggest trying to keep things the same to the best of your ability. So what I like to do is, if I have my two-handed grip, all I'm doing is taking the left hand off and the thumb's in the same spot. I just like it because it's a repetition. It's the same thing. What's often taught is, what's commonly taught is that you can cant the gun a little bit this way when you're shooting. And yes, it is a little bit more natural feeling, I would argue. However, I typically recommend against that and say keep the gun lined up straight. Yes, it's going to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. But if you're mashing down, you're holding onto the gun tight, what you'll find is as the sights rise in recoil, they come straight back down if you're holding on tight enough. So it's straight up, straight down. As opposed to canted, I find it's easier for the sights to come up and then kind of wiggle their way back down left and right a little bit. It's a little bit harder, generally speaking, to get those sights lined up faster when the gun is canted. It may feel more natural, but again, I suggest at least trying having the sights pointed straight up and down, not canted. So we're going to move to live fire. Again, it's not going to look that much differently. One's not going to be so much better than the other that it's going to be shooting a lot faster than one or the other, but it's more so shoot it and see for yourself. I encourage you to try sight straight up and down. I find it works easier. So, canted first. Moving the sights straight up and down next. Easy as that.